The expansion is out and we're learning new and updated information. Two major things happened when Sargeras had stabbed Azeroth back at the end of Legion. First, the crystal Beledar shifted into the void in Hallowfall, and second, we've learned the black blood of the old gods first appeared in Khaz'Algar that is now getting harvested. Overall hints make it seem like this is the collective blood of all the old gods floating around the core of Azeroth, and it's possible Sargeras had stabbed Khaz'Algar and pushed his blood around, causing a catastrophe that we will soon discover. Most interestingly, an old god minion recently told us that the blood remembers and that the dark blood will rain from the false sky, which might indicate that the blood is the reason the crystal is shifting into the void, as after all, the giant crystal Beledar is technically a false sky in the literal sense of the word. So what is going on? Let's examine all the most recent information, because this is some of the most crucial lore for the entire World Soul saga. Did you know you can play the War Within directly on your phone with Awesome, this video's sponsor? You can control your desktop from your phone completely free, which is perfect when you don't really want to sit at the computer. Super easy to use, just use my link, download the PC and the phone app and just connect them. The free version is great, you can control your desktop, but the real deal is the game version with custom keyboards for various games such as WoW with great FPS and sound. Make sure to use my code DORON to get 7 days completely free so you can try it out only for the first 200 people. They also got a smart lock to turn off your PC at any time, as well as hot sales with up to 40% off on pro and game versions. Check out Awesome. So by now there is no way you haven't heard about the black blood of the old gods. This is not any type of a mystery, Blizzard has been talking about it pretty much since the World Soul Saga announcement. We had seen it in that short cinematic, it is really all over the place. In fact, we've been data mining a ton of information throughout the alpha and the beta, but now the expansion is out and everything is out in the open, we're actually learning new information that can help us tie all of these things together. So one of the biggest bits of information we had learned even back in the beta was that the light crystal called Beledar started turning into the void right when Sargeras had stabbed Azeroth, which kinda came out of nowhere as we had no idea. Why would Sargeras' sword in Xal'atath change an underground crystal like 3 zones off the shore of Kalimdor, and how would that impact everything? But looks like that is actually now starting to make some sense. No, I'm not saying Sargeras' goal was to shift the crystal. I don't think he even really cared or knew much about the crystal itself. The crystal is really one piece of the puzzle. So the crystal is actually ancient. I've covered this multiple times. What is really interesting is that in the art book, Blizzard actually showed us the entire crystal, what it looks like when it's full out there. We're only really seeing the lower part in the game, but it's sort of symmetrical. It's not the exact same thing, but it is a little bit more robust at the bottom, and it looks like it was built to pierce the ground from whatever angle it strikes. Due to the naming convention of Beledar sounding like Zenedar or Genedar or Exodar, and the fact that this literally looks like a giant knot of crystal, the most popular theory was that Beledar was an arrow ship that lodged itself into Azeroth at some point in time. However, that's not as popular of a theory anymore. Honestly, at this point in time, I think 2 scenarios are most likely. It could still be another ship, it's just that someone removed the machinery in the past, essentially just ejected the ship part. It wouldn't be impossible, I mean, just observe every single Naru flying fortress and you will see that it is a bunch of machinery around a gigantic crystal. So it's possible that it was a part of a ship. However, the other possibility is that this is a primordial crystal, and I think this is the most likely one at the moment. If you remember by now the old Chronicle lore, it stated in ancient history, gigantic shards of light were flung across the universe and they hit planets and created very first life. In a way, like how the old gods were sent to planets, so did the light crystals hit multiple planets as well. We've never seen these crystals or anything of the sort, but the reason is because this is actually underground. The crystal would literally be stuck in the crust of the earth, it's not visible from the outside, and we've never really been in a zone like this. However, I'm rambling a bit, this is on the crystal, but things get about 5 times more interesting. So, you might remember the new Old God Whispers if you've been watching my videos that we got from Hallowfall, which are essentially Void Whispers, and they're tying now into this. So, we've had the entire side quest with this weird fish, which you might remember is exactly the same form N'Zoth used multiple times. Eventually this fish escaped, it was met by a kraken, which are also major old god beings, and it told us some really interesting things. It said they are gone, but their blood remains. The blood remembers. Swim in these dark waters and be changed by them. No light shines in these depths. This is, of course, in regards to the black blood of the old gods that is ever present in these zones. And while people are talking that this is the blood of a certain old god, this essentially confirms that this is in fact the collective blood of the old gods. They are gone, but the blood remembers. Keep in mind, old god blood is incredibly potent. This is not just random blood, this is not remains of some big creature. Serenite, if you might remember back from Brad, had a ton of impact in Northrend, the blood of Yogg-Saron. Originally, the Lich King was supposed to be controlled by Yogg-Saron through the Serenite. Y'Sharazh's blood was all over Pandaria. It created the entire sharp mess that was present for thousands and thousands of years. You might remember when Garrosh threw the heart in, how it essentially destroyed the entire zone. However, now that the expansion is out, we are getting more information, and almost all clues indicate that this is the collective old god blood that is sort of stuck somewhere in the very foundations of Azeroth. As I just stated, the blood is not regular blood, it's magic, and it's entirely possible that a gigantic pool existed from the ancient old god civil wars where they battled each other. The very likely fifth old god in the mural that we'll probably soon discover in Khaz'Algar might have been defeated by his own. However, it's also possible that this blood remained when the Titans battled the old gods, and also when we've battled the old gods over the years, just a collection of Azeroth's struggle against this void invasion. This fish, though, says something that is incredibly interesting that can tie in the entire Beledar talk in this old god blood, hence I talked about all this stuff, and it might actually explain what is going on. The fish doesn't like Beledar, thinks of it as something as an invader, it doesn't like any of the light stuff, it warns you to not bring the light to their depths. But most interestingly, it says, dark blood rains from the fall sky, it tastes of wars past and wars to come. Now, just take a moment and think about this. Could this be the connection? One thing I want to mention that we just learned from the new expansion is two big things happened when Sargeras had stabbed Azeroth at the end of Legion. First, the crystal started turning into the void for the first time as observed with the Arathi, and the black blood of the old gods first appeared in the zone. It wasn't previously harvested. I don't know about you, but to me this kinda seems like a 2+2 scenario. I don't think it's outrageous to say that the blood might be what has corrupted the crystal. The void creature literally said that the dark blood rains from the fall sky. The Beledar crystal is essentially a fall sky. It's a giant light source inside of a cave. Now this leaves us with a little bit of a mystery. All the hints are pointing that this blood is pooled at the very core of the planet, and Sargeras hit the very core of the planet, so it's likely he dislodged something or broke some sort of a barrier that then started a pouring process into Khaz'Algar. The blood itself is said to be the collective old god blood, not just the one. However, keep in mind, when Sargeras stabbed Azeroth, Khaz'Algar was dead, but his blood probably remained as well as his body, and it was exactly where Sargeras stuck his sword, but N'Zoth was actually alive. He would only fight him in the next expansion. It's entirely possible that the old theory that Sargeras wanted to stab the body of Khaz'Algar was actually right, which kinda added a huge new flow to the old god blood that was already beneath the planet, and it just started going crazy. We didn't notice anything previously because we're on the ground floor, but Khaz'Algar is below the ground, and it's entirely possible that this old god blood is beneath a lot of other zones around us and we never knew anything about it. Now think about this, the blood is mainly pulling around Ashkahet, which is one zone below the crystal, but there is supposedly a datamine 5th zone we will soon discover called the Rootlands. Based on this, it really is possible that it is the old god blood infusion that started changing the crystal. Dark blood rains from the fall sky is really such a telling hint when we take all of this into account. Now, if you've played the expansion, you might have noticed how big this void crystal shift is. It's not just that it gets dark in the zone, but mobs overall get more aggressive and we start seeing different things that we don't see when the crystal is light-based. I've talked about this so many times by now in multiple videos on why Sargeras might have stabbed Azeroth and how it might have been a big screw you moment to the Titans, on how he wanted to prove them that Azeroth needs to be purged and how he was right because all their containment mechanisms have proven to be useless over the years, so the Burning Crusade might really be the only solution and he was right all those thousands of years ago. However, what we never really understood is why would a crystal shift to the void that is quite far from where the sword has struck? Well, it really is possible that stabbing Khaz'Algar would have added a ton of blood to the ongoing black blood pool, and that ultimately hit Khaz'Algar and shifted the crystal. However, I feel like if that was the case, then it must have also hit other zones as well. Think about it. Undermine is right next door, it is also underground, there are many hints there will be a patch zone for this expansion. It's entirely possible that Undermine is also currently being filled with Old God blood and Old God minions, and that will lead xal'atath to this place in 11.1 or 11.2, and then we will follow her, and how all of this could ultimately be connected. It definitely could be possible based on all the data mine hints. Furthermore, the sword itself is presented as the focal point of the saga, and Chris Metzen recently in an interview confirmed that Illidan is going to be returning in The Last Titan, and by extension, obviously Sargeras should be coming as well, very likely for the sword. Keep in mind, they were talking about removing the sword from Silithus. Honestly, stabbing Khaz'Algar actually makes sense when you think about it. N'Zoth was just about to get active, so his whereabouts maybe weren't exactly known. Y'Shaarj was already destroyed in ancient history. Yogg-Saron was thought to be dead, but Sargeras would then have to stab Ulduar, and then he would destroy a massive Titan facility, like the Titan facility of Azeroth. So really, Khaz'Algar was the best bet. Not only to further weaken the Void, but also to kind of start the entire process and make it urgent for the Titans, so that they understand that the time to act is now, and they can no longer just send Titan Forged and build facilities and wait for something to happen. Overall though, we will of course have to wait and see what happens, but it does look like the Old God blood right now is the main lore point that is connecting the entire World Soul saga. Thank you for watching, and check out what really happened to Khaz'Algar by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Ancient Training by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.